Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Okay, so you're here because you really want to understand what's happening right now with quality in life sciences.
Yeah,
And you want to do it without wading through a ton of information, right?
absolutely.
We get that.
Efficiency is key.
That's why we're doing this deep dive into the Qualio Life Science Quality Trends Report 2025.
Right.
We looked at feedback from 2,000 quality professionals in life sciences to distill it down to what you actually need to know, where quality management stands today in life sciences, what the challenges are,
What hurdles they're facing.
what the future might look like.
The trends for the future.
Let's start with who we're hearing from in this report.
Right.
Who are these professionals?
Most of them, 78% have been in their quality roles for over 3 years.
Okay.
So they're not new to this.
So they've got some good experience to draw on.
Yeah. And we've got a fairly even split between men and women.
All right, that's good.
47% female, 53% male.
Very balanced.
Pretty balanced, yeah.
What about their connections, though, to the wider quality community?
Mm-hmm.
Are they part of industry organizations?
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Okay.
31% are part of those professional bodies.
Okay.
RAPS for regulatory affairs,
Right.
PDA for pharmaceuticals,
Uh-huh.
ASQ for quality across the board,
Oh.
ISPE for pharmaceutical engineering, CQI, the UK one, and then FDLI, which is food and drug law and other national regulatory bodies too.
Right, so a real mix.
Yeah, a good mix.
Yeah, are these people who are kind of settled in their careers, or are they seeing a lot of movement?
Well, actually, a decent chunk of them got promotions in 2024,
Oh, wow.
28%. So that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
That suggests maybe the field is quite dynamic at the moment
Yeah.
and there's room to move up.
Yeah, makes sense.
But one of the most striking findings and something that really underpins everything we're going to talk about is that 97%
Wow.
of these quality professionals now believe that technology is absolutely essential
97%.
for effective quality management.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a really strong statement.
Everyone's on board.
It seems so.
It's a digital thing.
But here's the thing. Despite that near universal agreement on technology's importance,
Uh-huh.
a full 26% still rely on paper and spreadsheets.
Oh, wait. So there's a disconnect
Yeah,
between what they think they need and what they're actually doing.
it's a real gap. Tension comes up again and again.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about regulations and standards.
Okay.
What are these companies actually focused on when it comes to compliance? What are these companies aiming to achieve by the end of 2025?
So for medical devices, they're really focused on Europe.
Okay.
EU MDR VDR is their top target at 43%.
That makes sense. Uh-huh.
And then FDA 21 CFR Part 820 is next at 43%.
Okay.
And then they're also focused on keeping their ISO 13485 certifications. And then ISO 27001 is up there too,
Okay.
at 28% as a target for adoption.
Right.
And-
So they're looking at the U.S., the EU, and data security.
It seems so, yeah.
Okay. And then therapeutics.
So for therapeutics, GMP is actually the top target.
Good manufacturing practice.
Good manufacturing practice. It's
Yeah.
at 32%.
Okay.
And there's interest in the FDA's Quality Management Maturity Program.
Okay. What is that?
That's a new FDA initiative
Okay.
focused on how mature and robust a company's quality systems are.
Okay.
And that's a target for 13% of respondents.
So it's quite new, but
It's fairly new, yeah.
people are paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then ICH-QX guidelines
Right.
for pharmaceutical quality are a target.
Okay. So all of this suggests that they're really prioritizing manufacturing excellence
Mm-hmm.
and keeping up with the regulations.
Absolutely, yeah.
All the changes,
Yeah.
right? The report also mentions how many standards these companies have to comply with.
Right.
It seems like a lot to juggle.
It's a lot.
So how many are we talking?
So 46% of the people surveyed
Okay.
are currently complying with between 3 and 5 different standards
Wow.
or quality frameworks.
Okay.
And then 19% are managing 1 to 2,
Okay.
and 10% are working with 6 to 9.
Okay.
And then you've got 25%
Wow.
who have to keep up with 10 or more
10 or more.
different sets of requirements.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no wonder then quality professionals have some strong feelings about all of this. What was the overall sentiment from the survey?
Well, if you look at their agreement scores
Uh-huh.
on key statements, there's a really strong agreement that software technology are important for the modern quality role.
Right.
8.8 out of 10,
which we've already talked about.
which backs up what we said before.
Yeah. And people feel like quality is important to their companies.
Yeah, they agreed that quality is high on your corporate agenda.
Okay.
An average of 8.1 out of 10.
And they feel like their leaders get it.
Right. They agree that the importance of quality is effectively communicated by senior leadership, and that scored an 8.
So that's good news.
That's positive. Yeah.
But there must be some areas where they're not so happy.
Yeah, there are definitely some areas.
Like HUD.
So when it comes to like the day-to-day of the job, the scores drop a bit.
Okay.
So agreement with the quality department has the resources and support it needs to function properly. Only got a 7.
Okay.
And you feel valued and have the training and support you need to be confident in your role. Also got a 7.
So it's not bad, but it's not great either.
Yeah, there's room for improvement there.
Yeah.
And then for financial backing, the quality department receives a fair share of investment and spend compared to other areas of the business.
Yeah.
Only got a 6.4.
Oh, okay.
And most tellingly, maybe satisfaction with salary averaged a 6.
So they're not feeling the love
No, not really.
when it comes to money.
Not when it comes to cold, hard cash, no.
Right. And I remember seeing that like a lot of people felt like their jobs were getting tougher.
Yeah, that's right. 81% agreed that quality and compliance are getting more difficult each year.
Wow. So almost everyone.
Yeah, it's a tough time to be in quality, it seems.
And that's probably because of all the regulations
It could,
and
yeah.
new technologies and not having enough resources.
Could be all of those things, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of new technologies,
Right.
we have to talk about AI.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence.
It's the hot topic right now.
Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
So what do quality professionals in life sciences think about it?
81% of them said they were interested in using AI in their work.
Okay.
And 83% said they could see the benefits for efficiency.
So they get the potential.
They definitely see the potential.
Yeah, but are they actually using it?
Not so much.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the adoption rate?
Interestingly, only 25% said their company has an AI policy.
That's a big difference
Yeah, huge gap.
between interest and action. So they're thinking about it.
They're preparing for it,
Right.
but not quite there yet.
It's early days.
Very early.
Okay, let's move on from the AI hype
Right.
and talk about more established tech,
Okay.
like tools and digitization.
Mhm.
Where does that all fit in with quality management systems?
Right. Well, they asked people to rate how mature and effective different approaches to quality management are.
Okay.
And the highest average score went to EQMS.
Electronic QMS.
Right.
75 out of 100.
So those purpose-built systems, yeah, the systems designed for managing quality,
Right.
they're seen as the most effective.
Okay, what came after that?
Shared online folders got 65,
Okay.
and then paper-based systems got 62, and spreadsheets 60.
Okay, so it seems like dedicated systems are better.
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of benefits are companies seeing when they implement an EQMS?
It's pretty positive.
Okay.
82% said it made their day-to-day work better,
Yeah.
easier, more efficient.
Right.
And 97%
Wow.
said it had a good impact on product quality and overall process quality.
So it's a win-win.
Seems like it.
Okay, so with all these benefits, are most companies using an EQMS now?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
So 45% are using an EQMS,
Yeah.
but 29% are using digital self-built systems.
What does that mean?
So they're using platforms like SharePoint or OneDrive,
Right.
which are digital but not really designed for quality management.
Right, they don't have all the features.
You don't have all the bells and whistles, no. Then 20% are still using paper,
Okay.
and 6% are sticking with spreadsheets.
Still.
Yeah.
So there's a long way to go.
Yeah, there's definitely a mix of approaches out there. Yeah.
What about future plans? Are companies planning to get an EQMS soon?
So they asked about implementing one in the next year,
Okay.
and the average response was a 5.
Right.
On a scale from very likely to not likely at all.
So right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, so moderate interest, but not a huge rush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about the people in these roles. And how do they actually spend their time? Does that differ based on what tools they use?
It does, and it's quite telling.
Okay.
So for people who are still using paper and spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
they spend a lot of time on admin,
Like how much?
around 35%.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, like manually entering data and searching through documents.
Right.
But then for those who are using online self-built systems,
Okay.
they spend a bit more time on quality control.
Okay.
But the most interesting thing is for the EQMS users,
No.
they still have some admin,
Right.
But they spend a lot of their time, like 32%, on quality improvement activities.
Oh, wow.
Like process changes.
Corrective and preventative actions.
Yes.
So they're being more proactive.
It seems so, yeah.
Because the EQMS is freeing up their
I don't
time.
not bogged down in the admin.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really important finding.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the biggest challenges they face on a daily basis?
Well, the top challenge is definitely meeting all the quality standards with
Yeah.
a heavy workload.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is.
Yeah.
And what else?
Another big one is getting other departments to understand the value of quality
Right, and follow the rules.
and then follow the rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the balance between speed and compliance.
You know, getting things done quickly, but also doing them right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And building a strong quality culture across the whole company.
That can be tough.
It's a big challenge.
And what else?
They also mentioned not having enough resources
Right.
and problems with how roles are distributed in the quality team
Okay.
and just not having enough time.
Too much to do.
Too much to do. Yeah.
And then rising customer requirements
Mm-hmm.
and feeling isolated.
Especially if they're in a small quality department. Yeah.
Right. And difficulties working with other departments.
Yeah. It's a long list.
It's a tough job.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
So if they could change things, what would they do? Well, the most common wish is for more staff.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
more automation.
To free up some time.
Exactly. And then they'd like to digitize more processes
Okay.
to reduce stress and be more efficient.
Right.
A lot of them want to feel more valued
Okay.
and have clearer reporting lines to senior leadership.
Right.
And they want to focus more on quality work.
Not get pulled in other directions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they want more AI.
Right. Of course.
Who doesn't?
And of course, they'd like better pay
They
and more
pay-
buy-in from the wider business.
Right. So everyone's on board with quality.
Yeah. That's the
I
dream.
don't want to have to chase people all the time.
Yeah. No one likes doing that.
Okay.
So basically, they want more support,
Yeah.
better tools, more recognition, and better integration of quality across the board.
So the same things that they're struggling with.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's interesting to see that connection. What about plans for 2025? What are they focused on this year? So the top priority for 45% is to standardize and improve their processes.
Okay, so continuous improvement.
Yeah, always improving.
Okay.
15% are focused on bringing new products to market.
Right.
12% want to keep their existing certifications.
Okay.
9% want to get certified to a new standard.
Mhm.
8% are planning to implement a new EQMS. 3% are hiring more people. And then 8% have other plans.
So it's a real mix
It's a good mix, yeah.
of improvement, innovation, compliance, and investment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's finish by talking about that case study. The
Yeah.
one about the Welcome HRB Clinical Research Facility.
Right.
What happened there when they got an EQMS?
So they implemented Qualio,
Right.
and they saw a huge decrease in the overall number of quality actions they had to take.
And they had fewer non-conformances and protocol deviations.
Right. So the way they found protocol deviations changed.
Okay.
So before the EQMS,
Right.
most of the deviations were being found by the sponsors
Oh,
during their monitoring visits.
right. So external people.
Yeah, external
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
But after they implemented Qualio,
Uh-huh.
they were finding more deviations internally.
Okay.
Like during quality reviews and by the quality lead.
Right. So they were catching them earlier.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the number of findings from proactive quality reviews and compliance assessments went up.
They were doing more checks.
They were being more proactive, yeah.
Right.
And the number of non-conformances and protocol deviations they observed went down.
So the EQMS really helped them be more proactive
It seems so. Yeah.
and ultimately more effective.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's a great example of what an EQMS can do.
It's a really compelling case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's step back for a second and look at the big picture.
Right.
What are the key takeaways from this whole report?
Well, I think there are a few big themes that emerge. First, everyone agrees that technology is super important for quality now.
Right.
But not everyone's using it.
A lot of companies are still using old methods.
Right.
And then regulatory compliance is still a huge focus.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always going to be important.
Yeah.
And it seems like quality professionals are feeling a bit conflicted.
Yeah, they see that quality is important,
Uh-huh.
but they don't always have the resources or the recognition they need.
Right.
And then there's all the excitement about AI,
Right.
but it's not widely used yet.
Yeah.
And then finally, the report really shows how beneficial EQMS can be.
Right. It's not just hype. No, it's real.
They have a real impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so this report is really valuable for anyone who's working in life sciences or just wants to understand the industry better,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So as you think about all of this,
Right.
we want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
We've talked about the benefits of going digital, but why aren't more companies doing it?
Right.
What are the barriers?
We're holding them back.
That's what we want you to think about.
Yeah, it's a key question.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.